The government's overhaul of the Stage 3 tax cuts is massive, but luckily it's also pretty easy to understand. Unlike the original Stage 3 in the tax laws passed by the coalition government back in 2018 and then expanded in 2019, every taxpayer will now get a tax cut from July 1, if these changes pass the Parliament. But to make sure that these tax changes don't cost more than the $20 billion plus that was already budgeted for the Stage 3 tax cuts, some people will have to get less. Those people will be taxpayers earning more than about $147,000 a year. They'll still get thousands of dollars a year in tax cuts, but for some of them, it'll be half of what they were expecting to get under the previous tax changes. So let's break it down. First up, with a refresher on the current tax system, then the Stage 3 changes as they were, what the new changes will mean, and who wins and loses from the changes proposed by the Albanese government. First up, you need to understand how the current tax system works, and that means understanding tax brackets. Let's say you're a barrister earning $200,000 a year. When it's said that people in the top tax bracket have a marginal tax rate of 45 cents in the dollar, that doesn't mean they're paying 45 cents on every dollar they earn. At the moment, there are 5 tax brackets, and every dollar you earn falls into one of them. Under the current system, in the 2022-23 financial year, on your first $18,200, you'll pay no tax. That's the tax-free threshold. On your next $26,800, you'll pay 19% tax. On your next $75,000, you'll pay 32.5% tax. On your next $60,000, you'll pay 37% tax. And if you're lucky enough to earn more than that, for every dollar afterwards, you'll pay 45%. Overall, our hypothetical barrister is, in fact, paying about 30% of their income in tax, not 45%. So what would the current legislated Stage 3 tax cuts mean if they're not changed? Stage 3 removes a whole tax bracket, the 37% one. It lowers the tax rate on one of the remaining brackets from 32.5% to 30% and lifts the income threshold for the top tax bracket from $180,000 to $200,000. Now let's compare how the Stage 3 tax cuts would affect 3 different people: a teacher, a barrister, and a barista. A teacher earning $103,000 a year, around the average full-time wage, would have saved $1,450 in tax in the 2024-25 financial year. A barrister on $200,000 a year would be the biggest winner, saving $9,075 a year. On the other hand, the barista making their coffee and earning just $45,000 a year, now just below the full-time minimum wage, would have got a tax saving of exactly $0 from the Stage 3 tax cuts as they stood. To be fair, they will have already received savings of $1,080 a year from Stages 1 and 2 of the tax package implemented a few years ago, but that's it. So now let's look at how the Labor government's planning to tweak Stage 3. There are 3 major changes. The biggest is to keep the 37% tax bracket, but raise the threshold for it from $120,000 to $135,000. The second is to raise the threshold for the 45% tax bracket from $180,000 to $190,000. That's $10,000 less than the original Stage 3 plan. The third is to use the money saved from that to cut the bottom bracket tax rate from 19% to 16%. This change benefits everyone who pays tax, with all those earning over $45,000 a year saving $804 annually from this move. The government's also raising the Medicare levy threshold, which will deliver a tax saving of as much as $172 a year to individuals earning below $32,500. So how do our hypothetical workers fare under the Albanese government's proposals? From zero benefit under the existing Stage 3 plan, our barista on $45,000 will now get an $804 a year tax cut. Our teacher earning $103,000 will see their tax cut increase by the same amount from $1,450 under the old plan to $2,254 a year under the new proposal. Our barrister earning $200,000 a year, however, is among the biggest losers. They'll see their tax cut roughly halved, but still be paying $4,529 a year less in tax from July 1 onwards. If you're interested, it means they'll be paying about 28% of their taxable earnings in income tax, down from just over 30% currently. Our teacher will pay about 21% of their income in tax, and our barrister will hand over a bit less than 10% of their earnings to the tax office. But there's one important reason why low and middle income earners might still feel worse off than they were a few years ago. That's the low and middle income tax offset, known colloquially as the Lamington. In the 2021-22 financial year, it was worth as much as $1,500 in the tax refund of people earning between $48,000 and $90,000 a year, with a smaller benefit for everyone earning up to $126,000. But it was always meant to be temporary, and neither the Coalition nor the Labor opposition promised to extend it before the 2022 election. So even with their $804 extra tax cut, there'll still be a lot of lower middle income earners who will be paying more tax next year than they did 3 years earlier. But the key takeaway is if you earn less than $147,000 a year, under these changes, you'll get a bigger tax cut from July 1 than you were expecting. If you earn more than $147,000 a year, you'll get a smaller one. Modelling by ANU economist Ben Phillips estimates that more than 6 million households will be better off from the changes, with just over 1 million worse off. And 6-1 sounds like pretty good odds for the government in this massive political gamble.